class. Welcome to Human Anatomy 210, Human Anatomy and Physiology. This lecture is for Kines and Bio 210, so this will help introduce you to anatomy. Chapter 1, Holes Essentials of Human Anatomy and Physiology. All right. So a little bit of introduction to the history of the study of the human body. Early students of anatomy and physiology were most likely concerned with treating illnesses and injuries. Early healers relied on mostly superstitions and magic. Later, herbs and natural chemicals were used to treat certain ailments. Early study involved dissection of cadavers. Techniques for accurate observation and performing experiments were then later developed. And then the Greek and Latin words are still the basis of the language of anatomy and physiology. That's why some of these, they may seem foreign to you, and with good reasoning, some of it is mostly from Greek and Latin words. So if you studied Latin in high school, which a lot of us didn't, we mostly studied Spanish, but if you studied Latin, then a lot of these words might be easy for you. And scientific method has been used to gather information of the natural world, including the workings of the body. So here's an illustration by Andreas Vesalius. And then here's a pretty good definition that you should probably know. Anatomy is the study of the structure, so the morphology of the body and its parts, the form and the organization. So that's the structure, right? The physiology studies the function of these parts and how they work and interact. So the anatomy would be the biceps, let's just say the biceps. The physiology would be, how does it work? How do the sarcomeres contract? How do actin and myosin work? How does calcium come in? How does troponin and tropomyosin and all that stuff play a role? So that's the physiology of it. The anatomy is easy. That's just, the bicep is the bicep. So fortunately for you, we're going to study both the anatomy and physiology, because a lot of you want to know why. Why does something work this way? Why do biceps contract the way they do? Why do hamstrings contract the way they do? So it'll be good. It's a good class. The two disciplines are closely interrelated because the functional role of the part depends on how it is constructed. Anatomists rely on observation and dissection, while physiologists employ experimentation. So that's the difference between an anatomist. Basically, they're looking at the cadaver, and they're looking at the dissection, say, okay, this is the heart, this is the liver, but the physiologist will say, well, okay, how does all this work? Exercise physiology, if you've taken that, that's a fun class where you do VO2 max testing, get on the treadmill and see what your VO2 max. So exercise physiologists are more concerned about the exercise component of it. It's more common to discover new information about physiology, but anatomical discoveries are being made as well. But at the end of the day, the human body is the human body, right? We know there's 206 bones. That doesn't change. But the physiology of how things work, maybe because of technology, we're learning how things work more efficiently, not so efficiently. The difference between type 1, type 2A, 2B fibers and how they're working. So technology is improving, and so our understanding of the human body physiologically is improving as well. So function is determined by structure. So if you look at your ears have a specific design to them to get the sound in, right? So it has a specific structure and it's designed for a specific function. Okay. Anybody move their ears? Can anybody do that? No. It's kind of back in the days when you were out in the wild, you were actually listening for prey, right? So you'd go and then go. You were able to move your ears. So if you can still move your ears now, it's a pretty good feature. Most of us can. Okay. Let's look at the levels of organization. All materials, non-living and living, are composed of chemicals. The human body is the sum of its parts, and these parts can be studied at various variety levels of organization. So chemicals, atoms are the smallest unit of a chemical. Molecules consist of two or more atoms, and then macromolecules are larger particles composed of small molecules bound together. So the smallest unit is an atom. Okay, and then it goes molecules, and then macromolecules. Organelles are aggregates of macromolecules used to carry out a specific function in the cell. Okay? This is the first organization found in living organisms. So organelles would be like the nucleus, ribosomes, Golgi body, vacuoles. Those are organelles, and we'll learn a little bit more about organelles a little bit later. But you can see how it goes. The smallest unit, atom. A bunch of atoms make up molecules. A bunch of molecules make up macromolecules. Macromolecules make up organelles. All organelles will then make a cell. A bunch of cells make tissues. Tissues make what? Organs. Organs make organ systems, and then a whole organ system makes a beautiful human being. So that's the level of organization. That's what you should know. So again, after the organelles, you have cells, then you have tissues, you have organs, organ systems, and organisms. Here is a diagram. Here's an atom. Here's a molecule. So 2 or more atoms make up a molecule. Then a molecule makes up a macromolecule. Macromolecule will actually make up an organelle, and organelles will make up cells. Then cells make up tissues. Tissues make up organs. Organs make a whole system, like the cardiovascular system, integumentary system, digestive system, urinary system, etc., etc., and then it makes an organism. In order for us to carry out characteristics of life, we need to grow, increase in body size and number of cells. We need to reproduce, production of new organisms or cells. We need to be responsive, reaction to internal, external change, and we need to move, change the position of the body or body part, motion of an internal organ. Our bodies are made to move. So if you sit around all day, your body's going to start to hurt because say, hey, get up and start moving. Okay, so movement is very important. Okay, so if you look at characteristics of life, we also have metabolism. So you've heard about metabolism. It's nutrient cycling, the sum of all the chemical reactions going on in cells of an organism. So that's your metabolism. You also have respiration, the release of energy from food by using oxygen and giving off carbon dioxide. Digestion, which is the breakdown of food into usable forms, which are then absorbed into the blood. Circulation, movement of cells and chemicals and body fluids. And excretion, which is removal of metabolic waste. So excretion, urinary and digestive. Circulation, obviously the blood. Digestion, your stomach, pancreas, small intestine, large intestine, liver, gallbladder, and respiration, your lungs. Okay. Now, metabolism, again, is the sum of all chemical reactions occurring in the body. Stated differently, metabolism is the total of all energy transformations. Some release energy, while some use energy in the body. So there's 2 subdivisions. You have catabolism, which is the breakdown of organic matter, usually with the release of energy. So if energy is released, it's a catabolic reaction. So an example would be breakdown of bread into glucose, breakdown of steak into amino acids. Okay, so that's catabolism. Anabolism is the buildup of organic matter, usually requiring an input of energy. If energy is used, it's an anabolic reaction. Bone remineralization, muscle gains, and then amino acids to proteins. So that's anabolism. So make sure you know the examples and the difference between catabolism and anabolism, which are subdivisions of metabolism. Okay. Now, in order for us to maintain life, we need what? Water. So these are the environmental factors needed by all organisms to remain alive. We have to have water. That's why a lot of these planets are not inhabitable, because they have no water source. Earth is one of the only ones that have water supply. They're looking for water supply on other planets, and if they do have it, then it can be inhabitable. Most abundant chemical in the body, H2O, required for many metabolic processes, provides an environment for internal processes transports medium, regulates body temperature, makes up intracellular and extracellular fluids. So water is very important. You want to drink enough water, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but you want to make sure that you are not dehydrated. Students are notorious for being not drinking enough water. You always want to check your pee. You want to make sure that it's light lemonade. You don't want it to be clear. That means you're drinking too much water, but a light lemonade is a healthy color for urine. Heat, form of energy produced in metabolic reactions. Temperature control reaction rates in the body. Okay, so we want to be able, if we get too hot, we want to be able to release the heat via sweat. If we're cold, we shiver, so we produce heat. If you look at water, there's intracellular, which is inside the cell, and extracellular, which is outside the cell. There's lots of fluid. You have interstitial fluid. You have blood plasma. You have blood itself. All those are reliant on water content. You also need pressure. So force applied to something. Atmospheric pressure is needed for breathing. Hydrostatic fluid pressure is needed to move blood through the blood flows to deliver oxygen and nutrients to the cells. So pressure is also very important. Obviously you need food. Most must supply proper quality and quantity of nutrients, and obviously you need oxygen used to release energy from food. So these are the things that you need to maintain life. Our body's job is to maintain homeostasis. So when factors in the external environment, the outside world, change, conditions in the internal environment, the fluid around the body cells, must remain stable. So maintenance of a stable internal environment is called homeostasis. Make sure you know that. Homeostasis is regulated through control systems called homeostatic mechanisms, which consist of the following components. You have receptors, detect and monitor specific types of changes. The set point is the normal value or range of value. And then you have effectors, or muscles or glands that respond and then return the internal environment to stability. So like I was telling you, if it gets too cold, well, you have these receptors say, well, wait a second, it's too cold in here. So then that set point is beyond our normal value. And so these effectors will say, okay, you know what, I'm going to start shivering. And if I shiver, I can maybe bring that normal value, that temperature, back up within the range so that we're not cold anymore. So that's homeostatic. And the beauty is you don't have to think about it. It's all done automatically. Okay? We always think, what's going on inside? Sometimes the body is going through its processes of homeostasis. And this is why sometimes we get sweats, we might feel a little dizzy, we might feel hungry, we might feel hot, we might feel cold. Well, that's your body going through homeostasis, and some of those side effects is what you feel. It's a self-regulating control system that the body uses to maintain homeostasis. The body functions properly only when heat, pressure, and the concentrations of water, nutrients, oxygen remain within narrow specific ranges. So we can't go too many days without water. We can't go too many days without nutrients, and definitely can't go too long without oxygen, because it throws off our entire homeostasis. Regulation of body temperature occurs in a manner similar to the functioning of a thermostat in a home, and regulation of blood pressure occurs via pressure-sensitive receptors and muscle cells in the blood. Now, the three main components of receptors are structures that monitor deviations from point and provides information about changes in specific conditions, stimuli in the internal environment. Then you have a set point, the normal value for particular which body tries to maintain. So like your body temperature, it's set at 98.6 degrees or 37 degrees Celsius. If your body drops too low, then we need to heat up. If it gets too high, then your body is fighting off something, usually an infection or maybe a fever. Okay? So keep in mind that when you get a temperature of 99 or 100, it's not always bad, and you don't want to be so quick to run to the Tylenol or Advil to bring it down immediately. Now, kids and the elderly are different because they can't really stand fluctuations in temperature as well as young, healthy adults. So if you do manage to get a fever and see what you can tolerate, obviously 101, 102 is a little high, but if you're in 99 to 100, just let the body do its thing. And sometimes the fever is beneficial because it's trying to kill off the bacteria or the virus that has invaded you. Okay, so not all fevers are bad. Effectors are muscle cells or glands that bring about the change and bring the variable back to its set point or normal. So here it is. You get a change that occurs in the internal environment. Okay, so let's say you're cold. Well, the receptors will say, okay, well, did we go beyond our set point? Something has changed. We're no longer at 98.6. We're below that. Well, we need to get it back to 98.6. Well, the only way to get it back to 98.6 is we're going to have these effectors, which are muscles or glands, do something. So the muscles start to shiver, and they, in essence, have a response. And then by shivering, you warm up, or you rub your hands together. You do this to warm up, and then you shiver, and then you warm up, and you're back here. And the body will reassess and say, wait a second, am I still cold? Am I back? Am I good? Then it may stop shivering, or it will continue to shiver until it reaches this homeostasis. All right. You have negative feedback, which is a mechanism by which a deviation in a variable from its set point is corrected, used in most homeostatic mechanisms. So when the receptors detect that a variable has deviated from its set point, effectors return conditions toward normal. As the variable returns towards its set point, the activity of the effector gradually lessens. So a thermostat is similar to a homeostatic mechanism in the body. It contains receptors, and it will try to maintain normal room temperature. Okay, so let's say you set your thermostat at 76 degrees. Well, if it drops below 76 degrees, it might turn on the heater. If it goes above 76 degrees, it might turn on the air conditioner to bring it back down. So that thermostat is trying to go back to what we had set it at, which is 76 degrees. So if you look at this, room temperature falls to 19 degrees, 67 degrees. Well, then the thermostat activates the furnace, and the furnace produces some heat. The room temperature rises to 20 degrees, 68, and thermostat shuts down. Room cools down. So that's a negative feedback thermal regulation. So same thing here. If you look at our body temperature of 98.6, you start to rise to 99.9. You get a little vasodilation, which is expanding of your blood vessels. If you fall below, you're going to get vasoconstriction, you're going to shiver, and if it goes up, you're going to sweat. Okay, so basically you're constantly trying to maintain that homeostasis. Responses to cold temperature, again, the thermoreceptors detect drop in body temperature. They send nerve signals to the brain. Blood vessels in the skin constrict to prevent heat loss through the skin and conserve the heat. Certain muscles are caused to contract involuntarily. That means you shiver. Sweat glands remain inactive. Body is warmed, and body temperature returns to its normal state. What about if you get hot? Today it's like 99 degrees, so hot. Thermoreceptors detect a rise in body temperature. They send nerve signals to control center in the brain. Sweat glands are activated to secrete sweat, which cools down the skin, and the blood vessels in the skin dilate to lose heat to the environment. So vasodilation causes you to lose heat. Vasoconstriction is there to preserve the heat. All right. Now, all your organs play a key role in contribution by the organ system to homeostasis. You have organ systems contribute to homeostasis in various ways. Digestive system brings nutrients into the body. Respiratory system brings in oxygen and gets rid of carbon dioxide. Cardiovascular system distributes oxygen and nutrients to the body cells and transports waste away from them. And then the urinary and respiratory systems remove waste from the body. contributions by the organ system. So if you look at nutrients, you look at the cardiovascular system, you look at the blood, the respiratory system, you look at the urinary system, and this is how they maintain homeostasis. So everything works together. Digestive system is working together with the cardiovascular system. Cardiovascular system is working with the respiratory system. Respiratory system is working with the urinary system. So everyone is doing their part in order to maintain that homeostasis. Now, if one organ starts to shut down, or gets diseased or gets cancer, then it puts more stress on the other organs. Or if one is not working as efficiently as it should, then the other organs may have to work a little bit harder. So that's the body. Again, most of this stuff you don't even have to think about. It's automatic. Your brain, which is powerful, takes care of all this. You know, think about it. Now, that was negative feedback. A positive feedback is a little bit different in that it's a mechanism by which a deviation in a variable from its set point moves contributions further away from the normal state. Change from the set point gets larger. Many positive feedback methods produce unstable conditions in the body, but they are short-lived and eventually bring about homeostasis. So what are some examples of a positive feedback? Well, blood clotting leads to more clotting. Blood clotting, which stops the flow. So a little bit of clotting is good, but too much clotting is not good. And during childbirth, uterine contractions stimulate more uterine, which can lead to birth of a baby. So that's a positive feedback. Okay, so that's good. Meaning, okay, woman is about to give birth. She's having these uterine contractions. The brain senses that that's a positive stimulus. So let's keep doing that. And then you get more, and the contractions get stronger, which leads them to push the baby out. And then once the baby's out, then it goes back to homeostasis. So again, not all positive feedback is negative, and not all negative feedback is negative. It just depends on what we're trying to accomplish.